the where loose change makes something of itself deal. Because only at McDonald's can a stop at the toll booth turn into an impromptu breakfast stop.
Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?
It's hard to beat any size McCafe iced coffee for 99 cents until 11 a.m. But pairing it with the new Cheese Danish is a good way to try. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur Podcast. This is Matt here, recording live from the City of Brotherly Love. Always wanted to do that, City of Brotherly Love. My wife and I moved here to actually into the city. We were living in the suburbs before, but yeah, since the last podcast, it's been over a year since we moved here. It's probably been like 18 months since the last podcast. So I guess before I get into talking about the movie and everything, I probably should, describe the hiatus. Why haven't I been around for a while? It was never a conscious decision. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and said, "Hey, I need a break from the podcast. I need a break from the blogging. I can't do any of this anymore." It was more like one of those things where, take a couple weeks off from the podcast. Next thing I know, it's a month. Next thing I know, it's 3 months. Next thing I know, it's a year. It's 18 months. I can't believe I lost that much touch. I finally got in touch with Jamie again, my podcasting partner. She's been married in the meantime, so belated congratulations to her on her wedding. Which happened, I think, almost a year ago at this point as well, or a good amount of time ago. But yeah, it wasn't one of those things where I just decided to take a break. It was that my personal life was becoming overwhelming, my work life was becoming overwhelming, and the next thing I knew, it just took a week off, took 2 weeks off, like I said. I think it just the next I just sort of lost track of it all. So I'm hoping to kind of get back into things now. Maybe just start with the podcast, the blog itself. Same thing happened with the blog. Everybody knows that the domain name I used to have was mattmovieguy.com. Just because I felt when I first created the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur back in 2007, I can't believe that this May is going to be 10 years since I started the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. I don't know if I can call it an anniversary because I haven't been consistent. It hasn't been contiguous 10 years of the blog, of me posting, of me putting up content. So I don't know if I can call it an anniversary, but 10 years ago, I created the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur with this idea in mind of this wanted to sort of a tongue-in-cheek deal with me as this Alistair Cook-like character. Imagine me with my ascot and my pipe watching Dolph Lundgren movies, right? That was the whole idea of the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. It's not that I'm some snob guy, but a joke of being that person, right? That I'm watching direct-to-video films on PBS and discussing them like they're great art. Sort of that idea, create that joke. What I realized, of course, not long into it, is that connoisseur is not an easy word to spell. It's an easy word to make typos on, and if you don't know it, and I started to notice when people were searching for the blog, they were spelling it all kinds of different ways. So I decided, well, what if I create Matt Movie Guy? What if I get the domain Matt Movie Guy? And I'll make it easier for people to find it. And of course, what happened was I had to pay for this domain every year, which it wasn't a lot. I think it was like $10 a year. But in the period of time that I had the domain, I had one credit card, which of course, every credit card has an expiration date. My bank sent me the new card, and I never updated the company that had my domain that I was paying for. I never updated my information with them. I would just go in and just pay it. And of course, when the blog went dark, when I wasn't keeping up with everything. Of course, I also, they tried to hit my bank account and realized that it was declined, because that credit card doesn't exist anymore, right? It's the same credit card but a different expiration date. When they hit it for that and found out that no, there's nothing there, they emailed me on my Yahoo email account, which of course I haven't answered in, again, maybe 15 months or so. It's been forever, so I wasn't checking that either. One day I just thought I would go look at the blog over the summer and got some kind of random crap about wine coolers or something like that. Realized I had lost the domain. It was over. Now Simon, great friend at the Explosive Action, he reached out to me a couple times, and I feel really bad because I didn't get back to him as soon as I probably should have about that. But he said, "Hey, what's going on, man? What's going on with the blog?" And I told him, I said, I don't know. We lost it. I wasn't paying for the domain. And so I had to go back in myself and actually change it back over. I had to go into the Blogger and stop redirecting it, right? So it's no longer redirecting. It's just going to dtvconnoisseur.blogger.com. So that's what the URL is now. I still have to go in and change the archive page. The archive page currently sits at on all the links are for Matt Movie Guy. So anytime you click a link in the archive page, it's going to take you to that crap site about wine coolers or whatever. So that's no good. And then the links on the Hall of Fame list, those links will take you to that Matt Movie Guy. So I've got to get rid of those. But if you go in under the tags have updated because the tags page is something that's created by Blogger. So those are good. And then from there, I don't know. I'm going to have to go in and fix all of that at some point, and I hopefully will soon. But I think I'm going to now on keep it at the Blogger URL, just because if this ever happens again, and I can't, I don't want it to happen again, but it's already happened, at least twice in the 10 years that I've had the blog that I've of a time. I don't want to lose it again like that. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to just keep it there. Keep it at dtvconnoisseur.blogger.com. That's where you'll find everything for the blog from now on. You'll be able to at least go in and check out the old posts, and hopefully I'll start making some new ones in the meantime. But yeah, so why don't I kind of get into things, start talking about this Deadpool movie here, and so let's get into Deadpool. Take a look at Deadpool. And I guess the reason why I wanted to talk about Deadpool is, one, I saw it recently. It's a movie that a character that I've had some history with. And in watching the movie, I was like, boy, this could be a good podcast episode, and one to maybe get me back into things. Obviously, I want to do some more DTV stuff coming up, both on the blog and here in the podcast, and there's plenty of stuff out there, which I'll talk about a little bit more, maybe tease some future projects I've got going on. But, once I looked at Deadpool, I thought, Deadpool is one that I would like to discuss. And the blog does have a history of looking at comic book movies, whether it's DTV comic book movies or, I used to do those ones where I'd look at the bad comic book movies, right? Like Superman 4 and Catwoman, some of those bad comic book movies we also took a look at before. So, why not take a look here at Deadpool and see what it's about? Now, again, my history with Deadpool, what makes Deadpool interesting for me versus some of the other comic book characters is, we think of Spider-Man, think of Superman, even Wolverine, Punisher, ones like that. They all were, they all had their first appearances and were established, before I was born, before I was really reading comic books. And Deadpool's different in that Deadpool came out, when I started reading comics. I remember his first appearance. I can't remember if it was New Mutants 100 or a couple before that, but I know it was at the end of the New Mutants run. Deadpool had his first appearance, Cable had his first appearance, and then, then the comic changed to X-Force, and Deadpool would make these appearances in there, and he was just such a cool character. I mean, we all loved him, and he just kind of grew over time. Now, at that time, he was more of a villain, right? I mean, he was a cold-blooded killer. He worked for this crime boss named Tolliver. He was the kind of guy that you didn't know what he was going to do. But at that time, there was a lot of us, really liking baddies. Venom had taken on a kind of a cool edge. We liked him, and Deadpool was one that we really liked. I think everybody gravitated towards him, and I think his stock only grew. Now, of course, he was created by Rob Liefeld, and I think it's Fabian Nicieza, or I don't know if I pronounced that right. I probably missed it, but the thing I always remember about Rob Liefeld is at that time Levi's was doing these 501 commercials. It was like, what do you like to do in your 501s, right? And it had all kinds of people doing cool things, and one of them was Rob Liefeld making comic books, drawing comic books in his 501s. And I don't think they used any real characters, any Marvel characters, right? Because I don't think Levi's had the right to use them. But I just remember how cool I thought that was. Like, oh man, there's a guy that I know. You know, he draws comics that I know in a Levi's commercial. It felt like comics were going mainstream on some level, because at that time they really weren't, right? You remember the movies at that time, other than the early Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and then suddenly, you know, Batman had taken on a new turn with the Tim Burton Batman movies, but even that was starting to change as we got into the 90s, right? That was they were coming to the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, which people didn't like. And so, you know, comic books were not what they are now, where it's like every summer 3 comic book movies come out and they expect to make $250 million in the first week. That wasn't what it was. And so, you know, this idea of Rob Liefeld being this guy, and, you know, I can remember some of the other comic book guys, you know, Todd McFarlane doing Spider-Man, Jim Lee, who was doing X-Men at that time. I remember they launched a new X-Men comic that he was drawing. A lot of really great guys and a lot of great talent. And then they all shipped over to Image, right? Because they didn't like the fact that Marvel had control of their characters. And so there was that mass exodus to Image, and suddenly all of these comics, they felt like they were bereft of talent. It was a very interesting situation at that time. And Deadpool was one of those ones where I was like, oh, what's going to happen with him? You know, because, you know, suddenly, you know, I mean, I think Fabian Nicieza stayed at that time, but Rob Liefeld was gone, and there was a sense that the direction wasn't going to go in this, you know, where we wanted it to. And of course, I got older, slowly kind of faded out of comic books. I did kind of get into the comic book, the Deadpool comic book itself, when he had his own comic. And then, you know, I got a little bit older and I had a little money, and I remember seeing that there was a Deadpool comic that he had launched his own, and I was very interested in that. And so I bought some, read them. It was very, you know, I was in my early 20s at that time. I'd kind of been drawn back in. At that time, he had turned into a bit of an anti-hero character as opposed to a villain, and I think that's what, you know, maybe that's what the transition that was going to happen. You know, I think for Marvel, whenever a bad guy gets a following, they have to turn him into something of a good guy. I think they did the same thing with Venom. That, you know, we're supposed to hate the bad guys, right? I think even Magneto sometimes he'd be a bad guy, sometimes he'd be a good guy, you know, depending on what they needed him for. But Deadpool made the full switch, right? We needed Deadpool to be a good guy if he was going to have his own comic, but they always tried to keep that edge that he had from the earlier, you know, for those late New Mutants, early X-Force comics that we always remembered. So that's where I came into this film. Now, of course, before we get to this film, right, there was the first appearance of Deadpool in the Marvel films, right, which we remember was the Wolverine film, where he wasn't really Deadpool, right? He was played by Ryan Reynolds, which we all were expecting that, yeah, that's great, Ryan Reynolds should be Deadpool, right? But he was like some kind of amalgamation, wasn't he? He was like part Cyclops, part Wolverine, I don't know what else. It was a really strange thing, and everybody was really upset, I think. Everybody was very disappointed by that. And fortunately, this film was written to at least right those ills. Now, I was curious. I actually looked it up online, because I was curious to see what Rob Liefeld felt about this film, and he actually gave it the thumbs up. He endorsed the film. This was the movie that he wanted for his character, for his creation, Deadpool. So I think that was good to see. Now, of course, was it the movie that I wanted, right? As a fan, I think as a fan, we still have a say, right? You know, you think about the Star Wars Phantom Menace, how many Star Wars fans were disappointed in that film. We had a say. We had a right to be disappointed in the Phantom Menace, even if it was Lucas's vision. It was what he wanted. We could still be disappointed. And so, you know, there's still a part of me that could have been, you know, disappointed with this Deadpool film. I think, you know, again, they did right some of the wrongs. I mean, in the comic books, I was under the impression that Deadpool's power was given to him by the Weapon X program because he had cancer, and they gave him Wolverine's healing power to heal himself. And then, of course, his face became disfigured because his cells kept, you know, healing themselves. But the character had cancer, right? That was the whole idea. It was a Deadpool before that, when he was Wade Wilson. He had cancer. He was a mercenary who had cancer. And so this was supposed to heal him of his cancer, give him Wolverine's healing power, and it just was his cells healed themselves too much that he was disfigured. Not the same here in the movie. In the movie, he does have cancer. He's dating Vanessa, who we remember from the comic books, right? She was a bit of a mercenary herself, and she infiltrated X-Force pretending to be Domino. We don't really get any sense of that here. We get a little sense at the very beginning that she might be someone who could defend herself because she defends herself when a guy hits on her. But beyond that, she just serves the part of damsel in distress, which we'll get into later on. But he falls in love. He's getting ready to marry her, and he finds out he's got cancer. So instead of the Weapon X program, though, some guy recruits him for this other kind of program where this villainous mutant guy named Ajax, I guess named after the floor cleaner, because it was an Ajax, the soccer team. So he's the floor cleaner Ajax. He's doing some kind of experiments where he tortures people until they get a mutation. It means really strange. So I guess that means that Deadpool's a mutant now, as opposed to somebody who just was in the Weapon X program and had that happen to him. So then the mutation happens after so much torture, and he is disfigured. So he was doing this whole thing to cure cancer so he could go back and be with his love Vanessa, and now he's disfigured, and he can't go back to her because he's so embarrassed, because he was Ryan Reynolds, he was the hottie, right? His face was what was supposed to get him there. So now he wants revenge because Ajax told him he could fix his face, which isn't the case. So it's part revenge story, part love story, and I think it continues to follow that same old damsel in distress trope. This could just as easily be Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson making all the jokes and him chasing after the girl who's been captured at the end and he needs to save her, or whatever movie that you want it to be, some Douglas Fairbanks silent picture in the 1930s. It's just the same old thing. And so then I guess that's the key. If you're going to just do the same old story, just the same old, ultimately boil it down to the same old damsel in distress thing, does it have anything else to offer? It has a very early, really great action sequence that happens on the highway. I think highways are great for action sequences anyway. I'm always a fan of those. And this one definitely doesn't disappoint. And so Deadpool is kicking ass, just destroying people, and just, you see carnage all over the roadway. And then Colossus shows up. I don't know where Colossus. I don't know what made them decide to bring Colossus into this X-Men. And he shows up, and he's there to, I guess, recruit Deadpool, which was kind of a strange construct in itself. He's there with another mutant, which I'd never heard of before. She must have come along after I stopped reading the X comics. Negasonic Teenage Warhead, which is a great name in and of itself. And she's just a teenager who I guess has the ability to create explosions, or I'm not sure exactly how it works with her. But anyway, so she's in training, I guess, and Colossus takes her along for this. I think a better construct would have been is instead of making Deadpool a mutant, just go with the old storyline that he's a Weapon X who turns on the program, and he's out there causing all this carnage, and Colossus is like, well, I got to go stop this, and he goes to try and stop it, and that's where the conflict comes in. So there was that part of it. I think the parts of it that you love, Ryan Reynolds does have the humor part down. The jokes were good. George Michael had just passed away, and when I saw the film, I saw it maybe a week after he passed. And the things about Wham, I loved. I loved him telling Vanessa that he. What did he say? He had the Make It Big album. He said the Make It Big album was the one where Wham earned their their exclamation point. I thought that was a really great line. So there was a lot of that kind of fun stuff in it that I enjoyed. But I think when you boil it down to just that damsel, I would have liked a more creative storyline. I think I would have liked something with a little more intrigue in it. Something that had a little bit more going for it. I think you still have this trope of not just damsel in distress, but also this trope of woman-loving guy who looks ugly. It would have been nice if it was the other way around. Make the woman ugly and the guy have to like her, because society seems to care more about women's looks than men's looks, I think. And I think, again, that same trope of, the woman, she just is always sacrificing for a guy, and she doesn't mind that he's disfigured. She's going to love him anyway. I'm tired of those kind of things. I think that, for me, is useless. And I don't know that we even needed it. We didn't need this to be a love story. This could have been any number of other things. It didn't need to be that. I was trying to think of some of the films that it could have been. I think with Deadpool, even though I loved that amazing action sequence on the highway, I think the action sequence later in the film, that the sort of the denouement finishing part, I think for me that was a little bit too Marvel summer blockbustery for me. Which it's like I've seen this before. Great. You've got very talented people on computers spending 16, 17 hours a day making these things look nice. But that's what it is, From somebody who grew up with Hong Kong films, grew up with PM Entertainment, grew up with Canon, where you had real stunt people out there on the line and you had real things getting blown up. The computer stuff, it has a bit of a breaking point for me, and so I think that was a bit much. I think I would have liked more of just some more close quarters action, more close quarters fighting. I think something a little different. Thinking of the stories that this could have been. Again, he's a mercenary. I like the idea of a Yojimbo type film with him. Deadpool working that angle instead of and maybe Yojimbo has been done to death as well, so maybe you don't want to do that, but it would have been a little more creative than the damsel in distress thing. If maybe you have two crime bosses, right, that are paying for his services and he's creating unrest between the two of them, that would have been something really cool. And you still could have had that amazing action scene. You still could have had Colossus in there saying like, hey, I'm gonna try and stop this Deadpool guy from causing all this shit. That would have been good too. So there was a lot that I think that they could have gotten a little more creative with this story. I think they could have played a little bit closer to the original origin. I think they could have done some of those things a little bit more, and I would have liked it better. But overall, I think it was a pretty decent film. Again, I'm woefully behind on these Marvel flicks. I haven't seen a lot of them. I haven't seen any of the Captain America ones, any of the Avengers. I think the last Iron Man one I saw was Iron Man 2. So I don't know in comparison how this one shapes up. I think Ryan Reynolds definitely does it in that sense that he's funny and it's good. Colossus, I liked having him in there. I would have liked maybe some more of the Marvel universe in the film. I think that would have been nicer, just a couple more characters maybe. I know they teased that the next one's going to have Cable in it. That'll be good. I'd like to see what they do with that. I'm crossing my fingers that they're going to keep working it and they're going to keep making this happen. But when I think of those old X-Force comics that I read a long time ago, they did some really cool things with Deadpool, and that's what I want to see. I want to see them take it to that level. Make him be that guy that the 12-year-old me was just so giddy whenever I would, you go to the newsstand or wherever you bought your comics and see Deadpool on the cover, like, oh, he's going to be in this issue of X-Force. I can't wait to open it up and see what's going on in here. And of course, read it as carefully as possible, right? Because I'm going to put it in a Mylar bag with a cardboard backing thing and stuff it away because I expect it to be worth something someday when I don't even know what happened to those comics. Those comics are long gone, and I don't think they're worth anything either. I think I looked at a Wizard one time and found out they're not worth anything either. So, I guess you can get them anywhere still. But that was it, and it is kind of crazy to think that these things are. I think Rob Liefeld said the film came out 25 years to the day of Deadpool's first appearance. It's just crazy to think that all that stuff is that long ago. And it just, this idea that we're just getting older, I don't like to think about. I don't like to think of things that I remember growing up as being 25 years old. As I always joke, I'm becoming classic rock, right? We're all becoming classic rock. We don't want to think about that. And so, I think if you asked me in 1991 what I would have wanted for a Deadpool picture, who knows what I would have gotten in 1991 because we knew what Marvel films were like back then. They weren't anything like what we're getting now. Don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I like the Punisher film that Dolph Lundgren did was much better than the newer Punisher that they came out with. Better than a lot of the Marvel films that came out. By the same token, I mean, Captain America didn't do so hot, even though I like that one. I love Albert Pyun as a director, of course, and I know I like what he was trying to do with that Captain America. But I think in 1991, what would Deadpool have looked like? Can you imagine Deadpool as a PM Entertainment flick or a Golden Globus flick in 1991? That could have been amazing. That could be up there as one of the best DTV flicks of all time. And I, thinking about what they could have done with something like that, how amazing that could have looked, versus what we're getting now. I don't know. Jeff Wincott as Deadpool. That would just thinking about that in 1991, just gives me goosebumps to think about how great that is. So I shouldn't talk about what I would have wanted in 1991 for a Deadpool flick, but having to wait 25 years for it, I think. And I don't know necessarily if I was waiting for it necessarily, but the fact that it came out 25 years later, it's good. It's I think for something to live up to that kind of a hype, it's not always going to. I don't think it was the worst thing ever, but I think it could have been better on some levels. I think, again, when you're just doing damsel in distress, I think it is tired, and it does seem like easy writing. And I think overall, I think that maybe is what disappointed me, if anything, about this. All right, so just about wrap this up. I guess, maybe talking about the future of the direct-to-video connoisseur. I was on Netflix recently. There are a lot of doll flicks now, a lot of Steven Seagal flicks up there. Even guys like Gary Daniels have new ones. So there's a lot of stuff in there that I need to dig into. Van Damme's got some new ones. I want to get in there and start looking at what's going on. I started watching a doll flick, Kindergarten Cop 2. Not sure we needed a sequel for Kindergarten Cop. Not sure that I've started watching it. Not sure if it's really that good. But that might be the next one that I do a written blog post on. We'll see what happens. I'm using some new podcasting software here, so we're going to see how it turns out as I work with this. Hopefully, at least have some kind of not regular content, but at the very least semi-regular content, so that keep things a little bit accurate. Because everybody out there, I've really appreciated the support that I've gotten for the blog, even while I've been away. I've noticed people have still been downloading the podcasts over that time, so people are still discovering the DTV Connoisseur. So 10 years later, it's nice to see that we're still doing this, and I'm going to try to get it back in on track. Again, I think I'd be doing a disservice to everybody if I said it's going to be our 10-year anniversary, because it hasn't been 10 years of contiguous work, and I think everybody, maybe deserves more of that. I should have been at this a little bit more and stuck with it more, and I think looking back on it, we could have been who knows how many films at this point if I'd been doing it regularly, even just doing one post a week. So hopefully we'll get back to something like that in the near future. Again, if you want to reach out, the Facebook page is a really great place to reach out. You can always comment on a post there. I don't always catch the messages, but the comments, usually I get an email about those. I'm on Tumblr still, on Twitter. I don't always get notifications for those things, but I try to reach out. The Yahoo DTV Connoisseur email address, I have, again, I went in there today for the first time in a while, but I haven't been in there much. So if you're someone who wants me to review your flick, you're probably better off going to the Facebook page, messaging me there, and I can see about reviewing your flick for you. I'd like to get back into doing submissions as well, because that was something that I always loved, was when artists would give me their flicks. I would try my best to be as down the middle about it as possible, but I always liked that they were trusting me to take a look at their film, tell me what I thought, and being able to be honest about somebody's real work and try to get the word out about it, even if I wasn't a fan of it, to get the word out for someone who's really trying to make it, as opposed to something like Deadpool, which the word's already out, right? So definitely want to do more of those flicks, and there are some in the past that Jamie and I did podcasts on that I want to do written reviews on. Wolf Cop is one of those, so we're hoping to do more of that, some of that stuff coming up here soon. So that's where we leave it. But again, thank you all for the support. Again, I apologize for being gone for so long, but hopefully this is the start of a new beginning, or as getting back into doing something at least semi-regular. So again, thank you all very much. Again, I'm appreciate all the support, and hey, hopefully we'll be back at it soon. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.